to main topic number 5. And our 5th main topic, and this is going to be very interesting because I've kind of done my own surveys on this one, but it's been like a little while since I've asked, so it might be a good time to reapproach the subject. But with the pandemic, things are obviously scary. And by the way, the pandemic is not under control. It is way out of control. And the reason it's way out of control, I'm sorry to say, is because we're all being a bunch of nimrods. We're not wearing our masks. We're flooding the bars, the beaches. We're doing family gatherings when we shouldn't. I mean, there are so many little things we could be doing to beat this thing back that we're not doing. That's kind of scary. But anyway, that said, even if we were doing the things that we were doing, there was that big question mark. Would people feel comfortable using Uber and Lyft again? Because here's the thing. You could definitely make things safer. If people follow the rules, it's relatively safe to go to Disneyland. It's relatively safe to go to the theaters. It's relatively safe to go to a professional game. If we did the things we were supposed to doing, we could do some of these things again on a limited basis. Likewise, you can do things that would make Uber and Lyft feel relatively safe. Now, in all these situations, it's not 100%. You're still taking somewhat of a chance, but you can do it. You can make it seem a little safer. Well, the Drive has done some surveying, and some studies have been shown about whether or not people feel safe using Uber and Lyft. And, well, the results are not pretty because, according to this article, 75% of Americans fearful of using Uber and Lyft now, maybe forever. Now, on the forever thing, I will comment on this right now. Always, always, always question mark. They say forever. Because you know what I remember was forever tainted? Flying in an airplane. 9/11 hit, and all these articles, 70, 80% of people said they are fearful of flying, maybe forever. And yet, we got back to normal. We're flying again. Well, we were flying again, and this thing hit. So let's just take that comment and put like a pin there. Know that we are in the midst of a pandemic, and people are scared. Of course they're scared. But it doesn't mean that this will be a forever thing. But they are definitely afraid now. So here's what the Drive says. When last we checked in on the ride-sharing biz's post-virus prognosis, the outlook for Uber stockholders wasn't pretty. In May, surveys found that more than half of Americans were anxious about returning to the backseat of a rideshare, and that nearly a quarter plan to swear off ridership entirely. 2 months later, things don't look much better, as another pair of surveys have found that a significant proportion of Americans may still never ride a rideshare again. Car Gurus, one of the original surveyors cited in our May story, ran a follow-up survey in June that asked 779 Americans for their plans regarding transportation during and after the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. And so, of course, it's a small sample, but, it's not exactly science. You just ask as many people as you can what they think, and you record their questions, and this is what they said. It found that 29.7% of Americans plan to reduce their usage of rideshare, up from 28% in April. And that while a small number have backed down their pledge to cease hiring Ubers entirely, the change is minimal, down to 9.6% from April's 10%. Of this group of respondents, 58% plan to substitute personal vehicle use for ride-sharing, signaling a possible worsening of the U.S. traffic problem. Because, when more people take Ubers, we have a bigger traffic problem. A similar survey by ADT found that the majority of Americans are concerned about the cleanliness of rideshares, with 57.6% of the 1,005 surveyed reported moderate to extreme worries about whether rideshares are sanitary. Only 6.1% reported apathy towards the matter, though they represent a small minority of Americans, most of whom ADT found to be less than friendly toward riding Lyft or Uber even after the health orders lift. Just 25.1% of ADT's respondents said they were moderately to extremely likely to use ride shares in the future, where 59.3% plan to heavily reduce their ridership. Precisely 15.6% swore to never hail a rideshare again, and no matter how Uber's board members want to frame it, losing close to 1/6 of their customer base in a matter of months is an ugly change in fortune. Perhaps ride-sharing services could tempt some lost customers back by appealing to the 70.6% that will only consider riding again if vehicles are sanitized between passengers, though it sounds like those people might want to look into something called a taxi instead. And that's the thing you have to keep in mind. Like, how can you really be sure that these things are being cleaned in between rides? You can't. You're kind of taking it on a leap of faith. But here's my thoughts. I have no doubt that rideshare is going to be suffering for a long, long time. And I do believe more people will go back to rideshare than won't, though, just because that's how nature is. In fact, when I did my survey, my own little unscientific survey, if you will. Wow, my eye all of a sudden is itching really bad. I remember posting out this question to my live streamers. I was doing like nightly live streams. I was bored. I was worried. We were just hanging out, if you will. And there was one night in particular we started getting into just how bad Uber and Lyft was, and people were sharing their grievances, their frustrations. There was no work. They weren't being protected. And I asked everyone there, and there were like 70 people live with me at the time. Not quite as much as, definitely not as much as we have now. We have less now. That's what happens. Anyway, there was about 70 people there. And I asked a question. Hey, considering that we are now at the point where you are completely screwed, Uber and Lyft have hung you out to dry, and they screwed you, they put all their excrement in a bag, and they left you holding it. How do you feel about it? How many of you are going to go back to rideshare? Now, you would think, considering everything, the vast majority of people would say, I'm not. But instead, the vast majority of people said, with the exception of like one person, they all said, I intend to return to rideshare when this is all safe to do so. I might have had a little bit of a meltdown at that point where I pretty much said, are you kidding me? This is why you will never get paid any more money, because they have got you by the cahoots and they have not let go. And if this isn't going to make you leave the industry, then what will? Would you have to get shot and lose your arm, and would you still try to justify driving for Uber? I admit I was a little frustrated that night. So it's interesting to read an article where the writers might actually say, no, I'm just going to take a break. But this is just how it is. I think at the end of the day, most people who are fearful, they will eventually do this again. Because that's just the way things are. But anyway, I would like to know what all of you think about this. Are you going to use an Uber and Lyft in the future? Do you continue to use it? I would love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, think responsibly.